Ja, hallo, Kai Hoffmann vom Investor Magazin. Wir haben heute einen CEO-Roaster mit TriMetals Mining, mit Ralph Fitch und Matthias Vero. Einige unserer Leser erinnern sich bestimmt noch an die High Desert Gold. Vor knapp einem guten Jahr mittlerweile ist das her, ist die High Desert Gold in die TriMetals Mining aufgegangen, beziehungsweise ist mit der South American Silver zusammengegangen und hat die TriMetals Mining gegründet. Wir sind damals auf High Desert Gold schon aufmerksam geworden, wegen der Projekte in Nevada und Utah, und freuen uns heute ein Update zu bekommen von Ralph Fitch persönlich, wie denn die Entwicklungen vor Ort gelaufen sind und was denn die nächsten Schritte sind.
So let's open up. Ralph, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us. Same with you, Matthias. In our introduction, we already referred to High Desert Gold, which we introduced to the German community last year in a CRO roster. But I think, now that you're trading at TriMetals Mining after a merger, and just take us by the hand and run us through the developments in the last year, and of course about the ongoing work that you're doing right now, and of course what might come up in the next couple of months.
Certainly, and it's a pleasure to be back. And for those of you who were around for the last show, we were talking about the Gold Springs deposit in Nevada, Utah, mining friendly Nevada and Utah. And before we get into the whole story, I will explain how we became TriMetals. So there were two companies that I had been involved with: High Desert Gold Corporation, which we presented last year, and South American Silver Corporation. And it turned out that South American Silver suffered we lost our property to Bolivia, who expropriated it. And so the South American Silver Company was without a major asset in the precious metal field. Whereas High Desert Gold had an excellent project which was developing very rapidly called Gold Springs, which is the same property that we talked about last year. So it seemed to the board members of both companies that bringing the two companies back together, because they had been part of the General Minerals Corporation initially, and in 2007 we had broken them up and done two IPOs with High Desert and South American. So in December of last year, we decided to bring the two companies back together so that South American Silver would have a precious metals project of some significance, and that is the Gold Springs. So it started off as part of South American Silver, and then a couple of months later we changed the name to TriMetals, and that's where we are today. And you can see on this first slide that the old High Desert's main property, Gold Springs, is the corporate focus of TriMetals, but the South American Silver brought to the party the Escalones copper gold porphyry in Chile, which has about 6.5 billion pounds of copper equivalent, and we are ongoing with the international arbitration against Bolivia, seeking 385 million for the expropriation of our very large Microcap silver Indian project.
Let me ask you a question. How do you come up with the 385 million? Is that what has been spent on exploration, or is that the potential?
No, so the project was at the PEA stage, which is sort of scoping study stage, and in international arbitration, actually in the PEA it showed a project worth 700 million to 1.5 billion, but you have to really be into pre-feasibility to use those sort of numbers in international arbitration.
Okay.
And the expert witnesses used a number of methodologies and came up with the actual value of the project at this stage of development as 385.7. So that's what our claim is.
Okay, and how is this moving forward? So is this going to court, or?
It is in court, so we have set up the tribunal, and we've had the first sort of meetings, and we've sent in our statement of claim, and Bolivia needs to send back its rebuttal early in the following year, and the final hearing has been set for April, May of 2016.
Oh, okay.
So it's still a ways off, but with the shares trading at anywhere from 10 to 15 cents, and if there's a substantial award, clearly they could be worth something. So it's an interesting story in itself.
Okay.
But today, Main focus, I would like to be the Gold Springs project, which is a rapidly developing gold project, which I believe will become quite significant in Nevada. So these are just a couple of the things we have to have in any presentation in the US here. And then we get on to the company highlights. And first thing is we're still in a good financial position, $6 million in treasury. We've obviously done well as a management team with a number of successes, including the Microcap project in Bolivia, which was expropriated, but also Escalona is another major discovery. And we think Gold Springs is our next major discovery. And as you'll see as we go through the presentation, besides it being in a nice, safe, mining-friendly place, not like Bolivia, we have significantly increased the resource over the last couple of years, had a very positive PEA or scoping study. This is a 43-101 Canadian document, and it had 162 million pre-tax NPV at 5%, 57% rate of return. We talked about Say again? 58 million. Okay. On the, when we use contractor mining, it's 58 million. So it's within reason that a company of our scale could develop this project. We've talked about the arbitration, and we will see a slide that explains this Class B shares we've set up for folks who want to look at the arbitration side of things as against the exploration side of things. And we also have the acid chloride leach technology we developed for the Microcap project in Bolivia, and we own 10.7 million shares of another explorer called High Vista Gold, or HVV.
Okay.
The company itself, 135 million shares outstanding, 144 million fully diluted. We've got the 6 million in the bank. The share price over the last year has been pretty abysmal, but there was a big run-up when we did the merger, and then unfortunately it repriced back down to a low level. The last few days there's been some sort of change in direction, which hopefully continues in the common shares, TMI. And then on the second chart you can see the B shares, which I explain in the next slide exactly what those are.
Ralph, quick other question. High Desert, was that also already trading on the big board, or was it a venture company?
No, well, we actually had we moved it from the Toronto exchange to the venture exchange to save money. Early in High Desert's history, you may recall, we had a takeover about within a year of it going public. Yeah. When we had the 2008 sort of downturn in the financials in the US, and we fell below our cash price. Okay. So we moved it over there, but now we're on the big board, as it were.
Okay, good.
So the B shares, this is sort of a very brief description of what happens, but it's quite important to understand. So the B shares get 85% of the net cash proceeds if there's a cash award from this arbitration process, and the 85% is after all costs, and we have a third-party funder which pays all the corporate costs, pretty much all the corporate costs to do this arbitration. And first of all, they get a slug of money, and then the remainder is split 85 to 15. So the company itself gets 15%, and the B shareholders get 85%. And note that the B shares only asset is the potential cash award. They have no interest in, say, Gold Springs. So that's how the division is. So in terms of the management team, I was fortunate to be part of the Collahuasi discovery when I was chief geologist in Chevron. Chevron got out of the minerals business, and that allowed me to start this series of companies that started with General Minerals Corporation, then South American Silver and High Desert, and now recombining those back to TriMetals. Matthias here, lots of experience in the financial field, also very useful to us, a lot of experience, maybe unfortunately for him, but in arbitration as well, and he's really focusing on that for us. Randy Moore, the VP of Exploration in North America. He brought us this Gold Springs project. He'd known about it before he joined us. He has a number of other gold discoveries to his credit, and he is a hands-on sort of guy, lives out on the project most of the year, and is very much involved in the exploration. Felipe Malbran brought us the Escalones project, which we won't talk about that much in this presentation, but it is a large porphyry copper gold project which could potentially bring us a lot of value. If we now focus on Gold Springs, you'll note the big star in the middle, the red star. It is literally on the Nevada-Utah border, and actually at the exploration phase this is a big advantage, and when we get to mining, one state is chosen as the sort of lead, so we don't have a big mess with permitting. In the last few years, the focus has been exploration and developing the resource, and as you can see, we've been quite successful over the last few years. And under the 2014, we estimated in 2014, but that's really 2013 drilling. So in 2015, you'll see the 37 holes that we've completed this year added to the resource. And really, this is a big story of Gold Springs. It's one of the really big intrigues. We've only drilled, or still only drilling, 2 of the 18 outcropping areas of gold mineralization. And it's less than 10% of what we see as the prospective area for gold. And that's a combination of surface geology, geochemistry, and as you'll see, geophysics is very important in showing us the setting in which we're working. Gold Springs itself, as I said, we've done a PEA, this 43-101 document that's like the old scoping study, and the PEA showed that about 0.2 grams per ton is the cutoff. Remarkably, in Nevada, with heap leaching, you see cutoffs down to 0.15 or even less grams per ton, because it's such a cheap methodology to recover the gold. So in this case, when we did the PEA, we had 456 in indicated, 299 in inferred. If you sort of add those both together, which you're not allowed to formally do, I might add, under 43-101, but it's about 750,000 ounces, plus whatever additional ounces we've found from the 37 holes this year. But again, the important point is that we're only drilling 2 of 18, and we're still drilling the first 2. We haven't found the edges of the first 2, and we already have an economic unit as shown by the PEA. And you know, this includes good early metallurgical results, and other things to remember about this project is it literally starts at or near the surface. It's outcropping.
That's one of the reasons you can actually still have a cutoff of 0.2, because the strip ratio is very low. Is that right?
Very low. It's 1.73, the strip ratio. So we're in Nevada, which, you know, in the U.S. is the main place to find gold. Some in Utah as well, but Nevada is certainly the best known. And we, in a part of Nevada that wasn't really explored very well in modern times, but it was part of historic mining. There were several mining camps there in the 1880s, early 1900s. Well situated, good infrastructure. These are the main roads. We actually base ourselves in Cedar City. It's about an hour and a bit to drive to the site. These are big highways. This is the main railway line. The power line comes from about here into the site. So it's well situated with good trails and roads throughout the area. So it's very easy for us to work. In fact, we actually work out of a tent camp on site to save the 1-hour drive each way in the evening. Again, important thing about Gold Springs when you're trying to understand it and assess it. On the left is probably the best known mining area in Nevada, the Carlin district. And each of these little call-outs here are mines. The map on the right is our property position at the same scale, and the little call-outs in this case are just where we've got outcropping gold mineralization, including at least one sample of greater than 1 gram per ton. And often it's 10 or 20 grams per ton. Our highest outcrop is actually 100 grams per ton. So there's a lot of gold, a lot of undrilled gold mineralization. There were only a few drill holes when we actually got to the property. And again, this for geologists, this is a pretty looking rock, but it shows we're in what's called the boiling zone of a hot spring system, which is where the gold gets deposited in these systems. And again, in the 1880s, 1900s, they were mining 0.4 ounces over about 5 to 20 foot widths and getting over 95% extraction with gravity methods and cyaniding the tail. So a little more about this. So I keep talking about these 18 areas of outcrop. So this is a bit of a caricature of the actual geology to put on a slide. But the little green ovals are the areas where we have this rock actually sticking out of the ground with ore grade mineralization. Okay. And then the two little red boxes are where we've done enough drilling to start developing a resource. So if you imagine that as geologists we think all of these little zones and maybe the things in between, as I'll show you, the geophysics shows they all connect. These are all potential targets of the same type. And in these two red areas we've already got 750,000 ounces, and those two areas as drilled at the moment appear as economic unit in the PEA. So the idea is, even with what we've drilled now, we've got an economic unit. Once we've drilled all 18 plus the hidden geophysical targets, you can see why we as geologists believe that we've really tagged into something quite significant. So metallurgy, often an important point. The coarsest material we've done metallurgy on now are the reverse circulation or RC chips. And they have a P80. That means that 80% passes a sieve of about 0.07 to 0.25 inches. And we got these sort of recoveries, very good recoveries. 79% in the Grey Eagle zone, 89% in jumbo. Silver recoveries are much worse. This is typical in the heap leach setting when you don't grind the material to sort of powder. And we got 19% at Grey Eagle, 53% at jumbo. Fortunately, the silver grade at jumbo is much higher than the silver grade at Grey Eagle.
Ralph,
if you grind this, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, let me just quickly interrupt. Is there a specific reason why you did RC instead of diamond drilling, or?
Well, in Nevada, it is typical to do RC drilling.
Okay.
There are proponents of both, but you get a much bigger sample with RC drilling. And most people believe that you actually get a better sample for gold mineralization, particularly when you're dealing with low grades. You need a big sample to analyze. When you grind this stuff up, you get very high recovery. So 81 to 100% basically in both deposits, Grey Eagle and jumbo. And the silver recoveries, which were very low in the coarser material, come up to 10 to 67 at Grey Eagle, 71 to 100 at jumbo. So,
Ralph,
yes.
Did you run both scenarios for the PEA? Did you use both of them?
In the PEA that is we did run all the scenarios, but in the PEA that's filed under the sort of rulings that we're required to follow, we're only allowed to show one case, and we used 45% recovery, 25% recovery for silver in Grey Eagle and 45% in jumbo, and 75% gold recovery in both properties. And as you can see, since we had 79 and 89, the gold recoveries were quite conservative, and the silver recoveries were still at the scoping study stage. I would say that's still a bit of a guess, because that's the range that we're dealing with. But only 70%, I think, of the revenue actually comes from silver. So this is the PEA case. This is the mine model developed based on the results on the block model that was estimated and filed as 43101. And so this is using real numbers, real costs, and real capex. You can see that the cutoff grade was 0.222 in this model. Grey Eagle is slightly higher gold grade, 0.627 grams of silver, whereas jumbo is about 0.4 grams of gold and 11 and a bit grams of silver. What you will have noticed if you've seen any of our press releases this year is the drilling we did at jumbo was much higher grade than this. We had a lot of 1 gram intercepts, And in fact, our last press release was pretty spectacular. We got 138 meters of over a gram at jumbo. So this will materially change the average grade of this resource, and particularly what we're able to mine in the first few years. The mine model, even though we had 750,000 ounces in the resource, by the time you've put it in a pit, you end up recovering 351,000 ounces of gold and 4.3 million ounces of silver. And this is what it looked like. So it's a 9-year, 10,000 ton a day, has at 5% net present value, has 162 million. That drops to 109 million after tax, 57% rate of return, cash cost, very respectable, $600. Fully loaded costs, so that includes the capital, sustaining capital, cash costs, all of those things, 749. So this is a very robust project, which, you know, the break-even cost is well below $1,000.
Ralph, talking about being a robust project, I see that the PEA is based on 1,300 gold and $21 silver. Unfortunately, at least right now, we are a bit below that. Okay, you have a slide on this, okay?
Yeah. So as you'll see, we only went down to 1,000, but it still makes money at 900, even 800. So here you see it, $1,000, you get an 82%, 82 million NPV, 33% rate of return. So it's obviously not as good a project, but you're still making money, even if we go down to $1,000 or $900.
Okay.
It'll be difficult to find really good projects at $1,000 gold.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, exactly. It really is robust, and these are some of the sort of criteria. Maybe a little too much detail, but $1.41 for mining, $3.25 for processing. People often focus on this. 1.73, that's life of mine strip ratio, and of course, because we start off with the mineralization at surface, that has really helped. This is a little mine layout, so you get an idea. And again, we're at the PEA stage, so we still have to do a pre-feasibility, feasibility before we actually get into mining. This is the Grey Eagle area, this is the Jumbo area. It's about 5 kilometers between the two. In the PEA, we put the crusher on skids and just dragged it over to here. So we started at Grey Eagle, which is slightly higher grade, and then moved it over to Jumbo. As we find more resource, it becomes more and more likely that maybe we start at Jumbo and never leave and start another mine at Grey Eagle, but that's still to be determined. It's a simple setup. We have an open pit, and we move it to the sort of grizzly, and we crush the plus 6-inch material and the underflow, get it down to about 1 inch, and make the leach pad, trickle the cyanide solution through it. There's a impervious geomembrane underneath, and we collect the so-called pregnant solution that has the gold in, and then send it to the recovery circuit.
What's the timeline on the recovery?
I'd say it's still too early to know, but most of the gold in those tests that we did, we got most of the gold out within 48 hours. But typically in heap leach, when you're using coarser material, those heaps are actually leached for years, with the most of the gold coming out in the first month. But you put extra lifts on, as it's called. So you do one layer, trickle the cyanide through it. Once you think you've got most of the gold out, you put more ore on top, and then trickle the cyanide through both the new ore and the old ore that's underneath.
Okay.
So the old ore gets treated for a long period of time.
Okay.
So back to the property position as a whole, you're looking at about an 8 by 8 kilometer block, and you can see the call-outs. These are all the little areas that have outcrops of gold. And the Grey Eagle is the area we have one resource, and the Jumbo is the area we have the second resource. And to show you a little bit more detail.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
At this slide, you see you're sitting
Yeah.
on two countries. Is this a problem with the permitting process, that you must do something for Utah and Nevada? Is this a problem?
In the exploration stage, it's actually a significant advantage, because each state allows you to disturb 5 acres of land before you get a more advanced permit. And in Nevada, for instance, the property position is so large they gave us 2 lots of 5 acres. Similarly, we got 2 lots of 5 acres in Utah. We got the state lands and another 5 acres for the federal lands. So at that stage, it's a definite advantage. As we move to mine permitting, then one of the states becomes the lead, and you sort of go through them for all the permits. So we do not believe it'll be a problem at all. Both of the BLMs, as they call, or Bureau of Land Management groups that we are using, are very mining friendly, and they're pushing us to move as quickly as we can towards development because everybody wants a job. And in fact, on the Utah side, they've changed the designation of this land block to major use mining to assist with faster permitting.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
This slide, maybe sort of too many colors and maybe a bit technical. It's geophysics, and it's looking under the surface of the Earth. In fact, this is looking down 375 meters. And why it's so incredibly important is the bright red colors are associated with very dense porcelainous rocks, and those rocks are associated with the gold. And you can see that in this case, black ovals, which are the outcrops, coincide very well with the red colors, which is the geophysical targets, these very hard, dense rocks. And so what we believe, because you'll see from the drilling, which is all along the margin here, that all of these margins are prospective areas for gold mineralization. And if you add them all up, there's 33 kilometers, and we've drilled about 1.5 or so at the moment. So that's why we feel quite confident that we're going to keep finding gold, and we believe a lot of it. We think our upside potential as geologists is at least 5 million ounces and maybe 10 million ounces, because we're in the caldera collapse setting. This sort of curved feature here is due to where an old volcano collapsed when the magma chamber was evacuated. All the lava had come out. And that's the same setting as, say, Round Mountain in Nevada, which is a plus 10 million ounce deposit. So this is a very significant slide, and if you sort of understand it or get the idea, you start to fully understand the potential of the property. So this is the Grey Eagle area, and you can see all the little black dots of the drilling we've done. Some of these go into the middle here of this red area or high resistivity rock. That's because the resistivity is deep, and when the resistivity is deep, we can look both at the margins and over the top of it. But very successful, very good correlation. And in fact, notice over here is another area called Homestead, or White Point we call it now. We've just opened that up, and we get about 1,000 feet of quartz veining, about 300 by 100 meters, just exposed on the surface, and lots of plus 1 gram material. So that will be another target which will sort of join, we believe, actually to the Grey Eagle drilling. So that's for next year. But again, it's significant. This is outcropping mineralization. And to talk about outcrops, and actually Kai's seen this trench, it's filled in now, but 56 meters of 1.4 grams at surface is really very rare to find nowadays. And this material, when you follow it to depth by drilling, we got 21 meters of 6 grams, or 62 meters of 2 grams following this mineralization to depth. So again, we go back to this picture. I'm going to show you a little bit of Jumbo. That's the other resource block that we've put together. We're at about 2,000 meters, 6,300 feet, something like that. We've drilled, as you can see, over about 700 meters here. These are the little drill pads where we've made the disturbance. And this year we've drilled on the east side, which is where the pointer is, and we have found a lot more high-grade mineralization, which will be part of the re-estimate of the resource and the PEA going into next year. This is probably difficult to see, but the point is to just show you the scale, 1,200 meters. This is the outline of the PEA pit, and the little lines in between are the horizontal projection of the drill holes, but you can see last year when we were talking it was from here to here. We've already extended it to the north and well to the south. In fact, there's a new zone starting over here in the west. So this is the trend we talked about, and it hasn't ended. So we're still drilling those first couple of targets, and the mineralization just keeps going. So
what do you spend this year on the project?
we spent, let's see, 2.5 million, Matthias, is that?
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know if you heard Matthias's microphone might have been off, but 2.5 million. So
Yes, 2.5 million.
So this slide is really important. So I will try and explain it a little bit. So the colors in the boxes are what we estimated last year, and there are lots more holes than you see in this section. This is like a slice of bread in a loaf. But the brighter colors are the higher grades, and it was sort of projected to come down like this. The pit that was developed on this is this line here. And then we drilled this hole this year, and it showed the sort of projection was good, but it showed all of this new mineralization that we had no idea existed. And this is this 138 meters of 1 gram. So you can see it extends a very good grade mineralization well outside of the present PEA pit. So we still have, these are 25 meters, so it's about 225 meters to the bottom here. So we imagine we have to do the work, but when we come back and re-estimate the pit with the other drilling we've done, it will probably extend down a lot further, and we'll have a lot more higher grade mineralization. And most of the holes we drilled on Jumbo this year did the same thing. Here's another example in the southern Jumbo. See how well our estimation, the bright colors in the blocks. This is a new hole, and it fell exactly in line with where we expected the mineralization. This is the bottom of the old pit. We've shown that there's actually another zone of mineralization below it, so probably the pit will extend as well. And if I showed you all the 22 holes we've done at Jumbo, I think 18 of them actually extended the outline of the pit. So it's interesting, this project. It's got lots of gold, lots of new areas we can drill. We've already got a PEA that shows we've got an economic unit with 2 of them. And we've just talked about this Gold Springs portion. We also have another claim block, which is contiguous, but we had another name for it, Pinion. And here again, here's an example of an outcrop, 5 grams per ton. There's no drill holes, no historic drill holes, nothing in this area, and this is still to be explored. So you start to see why we feel that our property position down the road is going to lead to a large and significant mine. That's our opinion.
Well, has there been any historic work on it?
There's a couple of little shafts in Pinion, but nothing like the amount of work that we see in the Gold Springs area, where there's probably 50 little shafts and openings or something like that. And in fact, on the Gold Springs one, there is a new area of outcrop we talked about in a press release, a couple of press releases back, called the Snow Project, where remarkably we've got an outcrop of 15 feet of over 3 grams per ton in outcrop. And we're starting to open that up with a backhoe, and we'll see what we find. But it's very exciting. These are new areas, never been drilled. It just keeps on getting better, actually.
Ralph, let me ask you another question. So you're a geo as a background, but what's the end game? Yeah, are you trying to bring this baby into production, or is it like you bring it to a specific level of development and then it will be bought by a major, or what's like just speculating?
Well, I think the as a small company, one can design or have a plan. It's good to have a plan, and our plan is to maximize shareholder value. We think the best way to run a project is to do everything as though you were going to put it into production, and we're certainly able to do that. We had, when we had the Microcap project in Bolivia, we had developed a mining team, so we know we can put one together if we need to. It will depend probably on the availability of financing for developing a mine versus for continuing the exploration. And there's an interesting point there. When we were down in New Orleans at the little gold conference or investing conference down there, there were a lot of private equity funds and groups of that sort, streaming funds, who have billions of dollars looking for good projects. Right. So I think if we chose to go to mining, chances are we could get an offer or two. So I don't think, the equity markets are miserable, but there's a ton of money out there trying to get into mining. So I don't think one should look necessarily at equity pricing right now to reflect how a project is going to develop. I think we've got a very good chance. A lot of people realize that this has got all the hallmarks of a very good project.
Oh,
and so, we've
the private equity market.
Yeah. So we're going to add that 37 holes to the resource, and hopefully it'll increase the number of ounces, and then we'll re-estimate the PEA. And things to remember is, we are moving it close to production, and we may put it into production ourselves. Sometimes, as you know, if you get to a certain number of ounces, the larger companies try and take you over, so that is a possibility. But we're going to stay on this path until something like that happens, or we get into production.
What's the structure of the shareholders, like institutions, retail? Is there any bigger, strong shareholders that are going to support you?
Yes, it's very important. We have, I would say, very close to 50% as very large, friendly shareholders. Most of them based in Europe or Russia, and maybe 10% in China. But we've probably got 30 to 40% out of Switzerland, some in Germany and UK. Okay. So we've got some big shareholders, and we actually, during the year, revisited with all of those guys to make sure we were going in the direction they wanted and got solid backing. So if anyone wants to take us over, the price is likely to go a lot higher. We're not going to be let go for 30% over present price or anything like that.
That's what I'm always afraid of, is that the majors are just making use of this depressed market and taking over really good projects or good companies at just a small premium. Yeah, that happened unfortunately on a couple of my investments. Yeah, like one of the last ones was Bayfield Ventures, which was just acquired by New Gold, for a bargain. Yeah, as I can say it.
Yes, I think, that always is a possibility, but I think what I think is going to be really intriguing to see how it unfolds. So all the sort of hedge funds that used to come into these small companies as equity are, for the moment, trying to do it as sort of loans and streaming agreements and offtake agreements and all this sort of thing. But eventually, those agreements will get done, and that's got to have a massive impact to the good, I think, on the equity side. So it'll be interesting to see how this unfolds. But there's a huge amount going on in the background, I think, in the precious metal space that most equity investors really are not. They don't understand it's going on, and I think we could see a huge jump to the upside in equities at very short notice. But we are in a very strong position, strong shareholder base, good treasury, lots of people like our project, and it's really just for us to choose which way we're going to go. So that's Gold Springs. That's the focus, and that's really, I think, the main reason to invest in our company. But it's really good to remember that we've got 6.5 billion pounds of copper equivalent just east of El Teniente, which is the world's largest underground copper project. And we do have a gold credit, so this is quite an important project with a lot of upside as well. These are the actual pounds in a filed PEA, and the resource has been filed. And you can see the average grade is modest, but we've got this gold credit here. And we've actually done an internal scoping study that shows this is a really good project. We haven't brought it up to 43101 standards because at the moment no one's very impressed by big copper projects. But it's sitting there, and it's a very, very valuable asset. Probably going to be worth, my guess is, somewhere between 2 and 4 cents a pound, if one did a deal on it or something like that down the road. So it could make a very significant impact on our market cap at the right moment. We've just completed permitting there, and so we're ready to go, maybe with a partner for the next drill program. And the big thing to drill will be this skarn. And you'll see in the next slide why that looks so important. So the skarn is magnetic, so we can fly airborne magnetics that show us where that magnetic rock is subsurface. And we're talking about 2 kilometers here of this very intense anomaly. We've only drilled down to here and already got 6.5 billion pounds. And this goes another couple of kilometers in depth and several kilometers along strike. So that's the enormous upside of this project. And not last, the arbitration. And I don't know if your microphone's there, Matthias, but maybe you would like to say a little bit about this. I think we have one more slide over here.
Well, the arbitration is going well. We filed our statement of claim in September. As Ralph mentioned, the claim is around 385 million. Bolivia is due to file their statement of defense. It's probably going to be in February of 2015. Then there's going to be a second round of submissions, and the final hearing is going to be in May 2016. It's good to remember that we have the Class B shares that track the arbitration award. Those shares are traded on the TSX main board.
Yeah, so it's going well, and I think the B shareholders hopefully will see some sort of uplift in the price of those shares. And we are managing the process, but we have very good attorneys, and I think it's very likely we'll be successful, since there was a government decree in Bolivia expropriating the property. So there's no question that they took it.
Let me just do the math. So the capex for the project are like a little bit shy of 60 million, right?
Yes.
So the 6 million which you have in your bank account, how long will they take you? Like the next 18 months or so?
Yes. Well, it depends on how rapidly we go, but we have
Sure.
enough money, say, to complete the pre-feasibility study, which is, a real important marker in the sand. And, at some time, it is an exploration company, so we will need more funding. But remember, there are these non-dilutive ways to approach this, such as sort of private equity or streaming agreements and things of this sort. And it's just a question of which of these routes we sort of finally choose.
No, sure, because I was just wondering, 15% of this 385 million, yes, is roughly 58 million, which comes into TMI.
Yes. Now, we have published, we have a confidential agreement with the third-party funder, but we have said that the likely costs to arbitrate this whole thing, the total cost may be as much as a third of the total award. So you've got to knock a third off of that, maybe for costs, and then split it up 15% to 85%.
Okay.
But yes, it's like
it's like 35 million.
Yeah, it's still a nice little financing.
But is this realistic that it's come up to this number, or it's coming in general with I don't know, 10, 20, or 30%? What's the number? No. Or shows at the moment. Is there any historical?
Well, I think that there's two things. Awards have been made against Bolivia, and Bolivia has paid. Now, some of the companies have had large awards made, and they have, subsequent to the award, negotiated with Bolivia, I guess, to get the money faster or something like that. But we don't really have to do that, because we have funding in place to carry the cost for us.
Okay.
So that's really our story. And as we started out, Gold Springs is the focus, but we've got that £6.5 billion of copper equivalent Escalones, and we are moving forward solidly with the arbitration against Bolivia. So thank you very much, and if there are any further questions, I'd be delighted.
Well, there are actually. And one is actually from one of our readers, and it's about the exploration budget for 2015 and the schedule to the PFS.
Yeah, so with the money we have in the budget, we do have enough, with the money we have in the Treasury, we do have enough to complete a PFS, or we could decide to just continue what we did this year, which was to continue to expand the resource. That decision has not been made, and is usually made in January. We normally start drilling in March or April. So we haven't actually made that decision yet. But I think one of the things be important to take away from this is you don't necessarily have to look at the 6 million and think that that's the only way for us to move forward. And you don't have to think that that means an equity raise and a lot of dilution. I think there are quite a lot of choices out there. We haven't made any of them. But I think you need to understand that there's a lot of money looking for good projects. And we're just thinking through how we want to move forward.
Okay, so to put a bow around it, what are the next press releases, or what's the news flow looking like in the next 3 to 6 months?
Well, we're doing metallurgy. That's continuing. We are just finished a series of diamond drill holes, mostly for metallurgy, so maybe not terribly exciting as a press release, but for geologists it's very exciting to look at, and very useful for metallurgy, geotechnical work and things of this sort. And we are also doing trenching still on that snow project and some other sort of items like that. So there will be continued news flow through the end of the year.
Okay. Going back, Michael, you asked that earlier, is about the shareholder structure, or
right.
the shareholder. Are there any large institutions in Canada invested, or that are?
Well, we have Sprott is invested, has been for a long time through South American Silver. But again, our biggest blocks are probably the Isurium Fund in London, which one of our directors is, I believe, a director on that fund. We have Zamin, which is a big Indian company. They also have around 10%. We have a group of Chinese investors who represent about 10%. So there's about 30, and we have at least another 30 in Switzerland as a group.
Okay.
They're not a voting group, but they've been with us since the beginning, and they're very much behind the company.
Is there any broker coverage, broker research outstanding?
No, I think we're a bit shy of that. There's a few bloggers who follow us.
Okay.
There's a letter writer who you can certainly go to his website, Brian London, who I have a lot of respect for. He likes the project, recommends it. So those are probably the ones at the forefront at the present time.
Okay.
Okay. One more time, going back to the share structure, are there any options, warrants outstanding we have to consider?
I think there's 6.7 million options, but they're pretty much all out of the money. And there's a few warrants, but
1.7 million warrants.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's 144 million shares fully diluted.
Okay.
So we think we've got a very strong project in importantly, a mining-friendly and safe jurisdiction in Nevada and Utah in the U.S. And the stuff outcrops, and we've got a solid PEA, and we're sort of moving from there. So as a company, we feel very solid. Of course, we're not very proud of our share price, but I've been buying shares. You can look it up on SETI. Just last week, I bought more shares after we made 2 days after we made the press release announcement, which is our ruling. And I've been buying whenever I'm able this year and last year. Have over 4 million shares now, so I'm obviously a believer myself.
Put your money where your mouth is.
Ralph, one question about the arbitration. Where is the international court sitting? Is this a US court or is it a European court?
This is under the Hague, is the seat of arbitration.
Okay.
But you can actually have the hearings themselves where you sort of talk to each other in other locations than that. In fact, it's probably going to be either the US or Colombia.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. Now I think we're sort of running out of time here as well.
Okay.
So if you have any last words, I think thank you for your time. I think the project's developed really nicely. I'd be interested to see what the decision is in January, how you want to develop, or what the next steps will be. I'd be interested to see whether you decide to take it further to production, or with a $58 million capex, whether the PFS is the next thing, sort of as a milestone. And thanks for taking the time. Thanks, Ralph. Thanks, Matthias. And,
thank you very much.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
And I have one last thing. I'll say it in German. TriMetals Mining ist auch ein Kunde von mir beim Investor, also nicht vom Investor Magazin, sondern von meiner IAMPR-Beratung Store Financial Partners. Und nur im Sinne von Full Disclosure, wie gesagt, ich werde bezahlt dafür, die hier in Deutschland zu unterstützen. Nichts allerdings, was ich schreibe im Investor Magazin, ist bezahlt. Das schreibe ich aus freier Hand und freiwillig, weil ich davon überzeugt bin, dass das ein gutes Projekt ist. Ich war selbst in Nevada letztes Jahr im Mai, Juni und konnte mich überzeugen. Ich stand selbst in dem Graben, den Sie vorhin gesehen haben. Wie gesagt, das Projekt existiert. Es ist ein gutes Projekt, was das Ganze angeht. Ob Sie das wirtschaftlich natürlich dann umsetzen können, ist ein anderes Thema. Das wird man in der Zukunft sehen. Aber wie gesagt, TriMetals Mining ist definitiv mal einen Blick wert.
Joe.
Ja, zweifelsohne ein interessantes Projekt, wobei es natürlich jetzt in den nächsten Monaten wirklich spannend ist und ich bin jetzt momentan ein bisschen unentschlossen, welche Company für mich die interessantere ist. Ich habe versucht, natürlich über solche Schiedsgerichtsverfahren sind ja immer zweischneidiges Schwert, da weiß man ja nie genau, was rauskommt. Wenn man aber 380 Millionen mal klagen, ist schon mal eine Nummer. Und da kommt am Ende sicher was raus. Wie viel ist eine andere Frage und wann ist natürlich die nächste Frage. Aber wenn man sich jetzt das natürlich anschaut und sagt, okay, von den 380 Millionen, man kann sich irgendwo bei 30-40% enden, dann sind das auch 100 Millionen, dann werden am Ende wahrscheinlich 60-70 Millionen bei den beiden Companies landen. Und da weiß ich eben nicht, ob nicht die B-Shares jetzt sogar im Moment die interessantere Variante sind, obwohl man natürlich vom Projekt nichts hat. Da muss man natürlich ganz klar mal feststellen, denn die Projekte sind gut, muss man überhaupt, braucht man nicht sagen, also die Wirtschaftlichkeit ist gegeben, sie sitzen wahrscheinlich wirklich auf 10 Millionen Unzen oder 5 bis 10 Millionen Unzen, je nachdem wie man es nimmt. Also sie haben noch viel zu finden. Daran besteht aber auch die Gefahr, wenn man jetzt dann viel sucht, dann braucht man auch viel Geld für Suchen und da verbrennt man halt auf dem Weg sehr viel Geld hin. Und wobei die Capex mit 58 Millionen nicht wirklich hoch sind. Also das ist jetzt eigentlich genau mein Problem, zu sagen, okay, welche Aktie ist für mich die spannendere Sache, ist es die B-Aktie und switcht dann mit dem hoffentlichen Gewinn rüber in die normale Aktie, in die TriMetals. Ja, es bleibt jedem selber überlassen, aber eines muss man sagen, ganz spannende Story und in den nächsten 6 Monaten werden extrem viele News kommen. Also setzen Sie es auf die Watchlist, wir werden wirklich da spannende Zeiten haben. Das war's, noch einen schönen Abend und viel Vergnügen und viel Spaß.
Ja, ich denke, wir hatten eine sehr interessante Präsentation jetzt bekommen vom Ralph Fitch und vom Matthias, der ein bisschen weniger gefragt war. Ja, anders als der Joe Brunner in seinem Fazit gerade mitgeteilt hat, also ich würde nicht auf die TMI B-Shares setzen. Da ist mir einfach das Risiko, dass vielleicht das gesamte Gerichtsverfahren dann doch irgendwie anders ausgeht, als man sich das überlegt. Ja, da ist mir einfach das Risiko dann doch zu hoch. Und in der normalen TMI hat man ja trotzdem den Vorteil, dass man zu einem geringeren Prozentsatz zwar, aber dennoch an einem positiven Ausgang des Gerichtsverfahrens teilhat. Und man hat hat halt ein sehr gutes Projekt in einer sehr guten Lage. Ich traue auch den beiden zu, beziehungsweise dem Management zu, dass sie das weiterbringen, das Projekt. Ich glaube nicht, das ist meine persönliche Meinung, dass sie es in Produktion bringen werden. Also ich tippe da eher auf Übernahme. Da habe ich ja jetzt leider auch schon im Stock-Telegraph Börsenbrief die ein oder andere gute beziehungsweise auch leidvolle Erfahrung gemacht. Ja, gut, weil wir schon einige Übernahmekandidaten im Portfolio hatten. Schlecht, weil wir immer ein relativ schlechtes Timing hatten. Die Übernahmekandidaten sind halt immer nur zu einem mir nicht genehmen Aktienpreis übernommen worden. Ja, ob wir da über die Extore damals denken, ob das die Terra Ventures war oder jetzt ganz kürzlich die Bayfield. Aber das ist halt marktinduziert.